Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, madam.
We will wait for a few minutes. Let's start now. Uh, so, have you all tried to do this example number 3 and 4? Did you all get the answers for these two questions? So, I will start with the example number 3. So, in the example number 3, they did not give us the crash time and crash cost, right? So as a first step in this question, first you have to find out the crash time and crash cost, right? So how are you going to find out the crash time? So we know there is a simple equation. So cost slope can be calculated using first you have to get your crash cost. From that crash cost you have to deduct the normal cost, and the whole thing you have to divide it by the normal time minus crash time. So simply this part, normal time minus crash time, it is actually the maximum crash time, right? By using this part, normal time minus crash time, you are able to get the crash time, right? So you are know about what is the amount of maximum crash time. So this is the equation. So maximum crash time is equal to what? maximum crash time is equal to normal time minus crash time. So this is the equation for the maximum crash time, right? So you are now know about the maximum crash time, and you know about the normal time as well. So you can take the crash time. So from the maximum crash time, from the normal time, you have to deduct the maximum crash time. If you are deducting maximum crash time from the normal time, you can take this crash time. So I will take the maximum crash time. From that maximum crash time, you have to deduct this normal time. So the answer, I did a mistake, right? What is the mistake? From the normal time, I have to deduct the maximum crash time. Huh? From the normal time, I have to deduct the maximum crash time. So this equation, if I rewrite that, crash time is equal to, I will take this crash time for the other side, then the crash time become positive here. Therefore, the normal time is remain in the other side. So normal time minus maximum crash time. So in order to find out the crash time, first you have to get your normal time. From that normal time, deduct the maximum crash time. So this is the thing that I have done. So first you have to get the normal time. From that normal time, deduct the maximum crash time. So by using this equation, you can solve for the other times as well. So you will get the crash time as 2241432. So can you see whether you are getting these answers? Right. So then after we can calculate the crash cost, right? So in calculating the crash cost also, now we have done this part, and in calculating the crash cost, you can use this cost law, this equation, right? So now you know about the normal cost already given, normal time now, normal time is already given, and the crash time we have now calculated. So how to get the crash cost? This cost slope, actually this cost slope, how to multiply it by the maximum crash time. Cost slope need to multiply it by the maximum crash time, and you have to add this normal cost for that to get the crash cost. Crash cost equal cost slope. That cost slope need to be multiplied by the maximum crash time, right? And the whole thing you have to deduct. The whole thing need to be deducted using whole thing. For this whole thing, you have to add what? You have to add this normal cost. Actually, in here, if you are know about this equation, and if you know this denominator of this equation is equal to the maximum crash time, you are able to solve all these simple equation, right? So this is the thing that you have to do when you are finding out the crash cost. So let's see whether you are getting the answers from the cost law. For the cost law, you have to, from the cost law, you have to multiply it by the maximum crash time. So it is G5. And you have to again add the normal cost. So the normal cost is, so you are getting the crash cost as 100. And see whether you are getting these answers for the crash cost. So these are the final answers that you have to take for the crash time and crash cost. So have you all done up to this point? ඔයගොල්ලෝ පුතේ මේ ගණන් දෙක ගෙදරදී හැදුවද? Very good. So 1, 2 students have done at home. So thank you very much for doing these things. Right. There are 3. Right. I think enough time for the calculating crash time and crash cost. So we have now completed this part, right? So as the next step, we have to we have to draw our project network. So according to this question, they are asking to draw the project network using activity on node approach. So in the activity on node approach, please remember that if I am asking you to draw your project network using activity on node approach in the examination, please use for the node as a box, right? So if I am asking you to draw the project network using activity on arrow approach, please use circles for the node, right? So the arrows are in the activity on arrow approach, the arrows become the activity. But here activity on node approach, the nodes are the activities, right? Using the activity on node approach, they are asking to draw the project network. So as the second step, you can draw the project network. And please remember that when you are drawing your project network, you have to take your normal time. As well as when you are calculating cost, you have to take the normal cost. So please remember that 2 things as well, right? So I will start to draw this project network using activity on node approach. So those who are not done this actually at the home, please do with me, right? So in activity on node approach, first you have to start your activity. For the activity A, there is no any predecessors. That means you can start activity A. And after starting activity A, after completing this activity A, you can start activity B, right? That means from the activity A, the arrow should be go for the activity B, this activity, right? For the activity A, can you see how much of time is consuming by activity A? The time is 2. That means you, in the duration column, you have to, actually in duration cell, you have to put the duration. So I have put that duration as well. So after completing activity A, you can start activity B. And for that activity B, the normal time or the time consuming is 3, right? So I am writing the 3 here. Then after for the activity C also, the predecessor is activity A. So after completing activity A, you can start to do the activity C as well. So for the activity C, the normal time is how much? 5. So I have put the 5 here. And for the D activity, predecessor is B. Predecessor is B means after completing B activity, you are able to start your D activity. So after completing B activity, you are starting your D activity. And for the D activity, the time is 3. Right. For the E activity, predecessor is C and the time is 5. For the E activity, predecessor is C and the time is 5. Right. And for the F activity, predecessor again become the C and the time is 4. So the predecessor is C and the time is 4 and it should be started after completing activity C. And for the G activity, D, E, F, all these three activity become predecessors, right? That means after completing D, E, and F, you are able to start your G activity, and the G activity normal time is 2, right? So this is the way that you have to draw your project network using activity on node approach. So as the next step, you have to calculate early start, late finish, late start time, right? So now I'm going to calculate the forward calculation. So you are starting from here 0. For that 0, you have to add this 2 here and you can get this, what? In this cells, we are getting early start, late start time, right? So for after adding a 0, you are adding 2 here. For this 0, you are adding the duration of 2 and you are getting here 2, right? And this 2 is coming for the B activity as well. And for this 2, you are adding 3 and you are getting B 5, right? For this C activity also, early start is 2. For that, you are adding 5 and you are getting late start as 7. And for the late start, you are getting early start, early finish, right? For the early start, you are adding the duration and you are getting early finish time. So this 5 should be come here. දැන් මේ පහ පුතේ මෙතෙන්ට නේද එන්නේ forward එකේදී අපිට මුකුත් නැත්තම් අපි කෙලින්ම we are taking this 5 here. For that 5 you are adding the duration of 3 and it is now 8. And for this E activity, early start is 7. For that you have to add 5 and 12 here. And again for the F is 7. For 7 you have to add 4, that means 11. So can you see there are 3 duration here. 8 is there, 12 is there and 11 is there. So in the forward pass calculation, you have to take the longest duration. That means you have to take 12 here. For that 12, you are adding 2, that means 40. And we have now completed the forward calculation. Now we are going to do the backward calculation. The similar 14, you can write it down here. And from that 14, you have to deduct the duration of 2. That means 12 here. So this 12 is coming for all these 3 cells. 12 minus 3, 9 here. 12 minus 5, 7 here. And from that 12, you have to deduct 4, that is 8. And you have to take, when we are doing the backward pass calculation, you have to take what value? There are 2 values here, 8 and 7. So what is the value you are going to take here? So there is, in here, the answer is there. Very good. You have to take the lowest value, 7. So you have to take the lowest value when you are doing the backward pass calculation. So 7 here, 7 deducted by 5, it's 2 here, right? So the 9 is here, and from that 9 deducting 3, 6 here. And for here also you have to take the minimum or the lowest value among 6 and 2, that is 2. From 2 minus 2, that is 0. So now we are going to calculate the slack. You have to take the difference between these two, or if you take the difference between these two or these two. So I will take the difference between the left hand side. So slack is 0 here. From 6 you are deducting 2, means slack is 4. From 2 minus, right, very good. You have drawn the tree path as well. So very good. So 0 here, and 9 minus 5 means 4 slack for the D. Again for the E, 0 slack. For the F activity, 1 slack. And for the G activity, 0 slack, right? So have you all finished of drawing this project network up to this point? So I am especially asking those who are doing with me. මම අහන්නේ මේ මාත් එක්කම මේක කරන කට්ටියගෙන්. So as you are silent, I cannot think. One said yes, right? 2, right? So after drawing this project network, so according to this lesson, we are reducing the project duration, right? So after drawing this project network, you should be able to identify each and every path that you can go, right? So first of all, you have to write down your activities in a vertical, right? After writing down your activities in vertical, I will take the normal time, which is relating for each and every activity, right? So I will write down the activities first, and above of these activity, I am writing down the normal time of those activities. So then after, I will write down all the paths in the project network. So I will take the first path, A, B, D, G. So this is the first path. So I will take the second path, A, C, this one. A, C, E, G. So that is the second path. So the third path is A, C, F, G. Right? So the according to this example, there are 3 project paths, or there are 3 paths that we can go. So after writing down all the paths, I will take the total duration which is relating to each and every path. Right? So for the A, B, D, G, I will take A normal time, B normal time, D normal time, and G normal time. So you have to write down the normal time which is relating to this path, right? So after writing down the normal time which is relating to this part, you have to take the summation here to calculate the what? To calculate total duration. So I will take the summation here. So can you see for the first part, total duration is how much? Total duration is 10. For the second part, total duration is 14. And for the third part, total duration is 13. Right. So by seeing this 3 parts, what is the path which is having a highest duration, and it become the what? It become critical path as well. So the Diane has give me the answers as well. All these 3 parts. So Rukshika telling that 40 duration, right? So the 40 duration is the highest or the longest path. So that means this path now become the critical path. So I will write down it as project duration is 40 days and the total cost. So when we are having the 40 days project duration, you have to calculate the total cost. For that calculation, you have to take the summation of these normal costs. So I will take the summation of these normal costs. So after getting the summation of this normal cost, did you all get the value as 1,200? Huh? The normal cost for this project is 1,200. Right. Thank you. Right. So, for the project, initially they are having the critical path as ACEG. So the project duration is 40 days and the total direct cost is 1,200. So we are nextly making or highlighting this critical path ACEG. This is the critical path. So I will highlight this critical path ACEG here. So A, C, E and G is the critical path. So please make sure to highlight the activity as well as maximum crash time and the cost law in the critical path, right? So after that, our aim is to reduce this project duration, right? So when we are wanting to achieve that reducing project duration, so as the next step, we are going to see after highlighting this critical path, we are seeing whether we are having the maximum crash time of 0 for the critical activity. Yes, there are two activities which is having maximum crash time as 0 in the critical path activities, right? So that means that activities cannot be reduced further. That means we can cut down that activities which is having the maximum crash time of 0. So what are those activities? There are two activities which is having maximum crash time of 0. Activity A. So I will cut that activity. So I will put those things in different colors. But in your paper, when you are writing down, better to make a cut or cross it down by, you can cut this activity, right? Simply cut this activity. So for the G, as we are having 0 maximum crash time, the activity G and A can be cut it down, right? Please remember that when at the examination you have to write down all these things, right? You have to firstly write down project duration 40 days and total direct cost 1,200, right? When you are crashing each and every activity step by step, you have to write down the activity and likewise, when you are crash E activity, crash E by 1 day. If you are crashing E by 5 days, you have to write down that as well. So the days and total direct cost, right? For those things, I am assigning marks, right? Therefore, please write down all these things in a, actually when I am taking the paper of you, if you are writing down all these things in a proper manner, and if there is a දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ paper එක ගත්තම පුතේ මේ project duration එක ලියලා ඊළඟට crash කරන හැම activity එකක් ගැනම හරියට පිළිවෙත ලියලා තියෙනකොට paper එක බලන්නත් ලේසි. අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේ crash කරන activities වල කොච්චර duration එකක් වෙනවද, කොච්චර days වලින් crash කරනවද, duration එක කීයක් වෙනවද, total cost එක කීයක් වෙනවද කියලා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ලියන්න ඕනේ. මොකද මේ points වලට තමයි අපිට marks allocate කරන්න වෙන්නේ, right? Right, so we have cut it down the maximum crash time which is having 0. So the next step is what? We want to see the cost law. which is having the minimum cost slope. So there are two activities we are remaining, C and E. Among that C and E, the lowest cost slope is having the E activity, right? So the E activity cost slope is 20. So I will crash E activity. So after seeing that cost slope minimum 20, I will see the maximum crash time. So maximum crash time is 1. That means I can crash the activity E by 1 day, right? So I will crash the activity E by 1 day. So I will make it another color. So you can simply cut it down 1 and write it 0. So after crashing activity E by 1 day means we cannot crash the activity E further. Therefore, I will cut it down the E activity as well, right? So the first crashing activity is crash E by 1 day. So crash E by 1 day. E activity is there on the critical path only. So I will crash E activity by 1 day. So after crashing E activity by 1 day, total duration now become 13 here. Right? So after crashing E activity by 1 day, can you see what is the which path are having the highest duration? There are two paths now, right? Which is having the highest duration. So the total crash E by 1 day, our total duration become 13 now. So the crash E by 1 day, total duration now 13 days. And total direct cost. We know the previously we have 1,200 cost. For that 1,200 cost, what you have to do? You have to add this cost slope of E. It is 20. That means for that 1,200, you are adding 20 means 1,220, right? So now we can see there are two paths as critical path, ACEG, ACFG. So the next next path activity I have to highlight here, ACFG. A, C, F, G. F is also now critical. So after seeing this critical path, I have to now crash further. So there are only two activities, C and F activity. So C and F activity, both are there. No, if I take this, these are the two critical paths. No. C and F are the activities which is remaining here. And if we say, see the F activity is not common for both this path. Therefore, C activity is only the activity which is common. That means we can crash C now. So I will crash the C activity. So maximum crash time is 1 here. Therefore, I can crash the C activity. So I will make it another color. So after crashing C by 1 activity, C activity also cannot be crashed further. So crash C by 1 day. So crash C by 1 day means C activity now become 4 here. Right? So the total duration now become 12. And here also 12. Right? So the crash C by 1 day and the total project duration or the critical path is now 12 days and total direct cost. Previously we have 1,220. For that 1,220 you have to add this 40. That is 1,260 now, right? So again these two paths are now critical, right? ACEG and ACFG. So if I see there is only one activity remaining, it is F activity. Other activities cannot be crashed further. So I will see whether the F activity is common for both this path. No, it is not common for both these critical path. That means we cannot crash this project further. So this is the maximum crash time. We can crash the project up to 12 days, right? අපිට මේ project එක තවදුරටත් crash කරන්න බෑ. Maximumly crash කරන්න පුළුවන් 12 days වෙනකම් විතරයි. Right? So did you all get this up to this point? එතෙන්ට වෙනකම් තේරුණාද? Right. Thank you. The question they are asking, find out the optimum project duration. So in finding out the optimum project duration, we have to make a small table, right? I am writing the days, direct cost, indirect cost, and total cost. So if I take the days, the first start date is 14 days and the direct cost is 1,200. And here they are telling that, did I give this initially 700 indirect cost and reduce 50 per day? මම මේ note එක කලින් මම දුන්නේ නෑ මට වත්තක විදිහට. මම දුන්නද පුතේ? නෑනේ. So this note is given, right? So please write down that note, right? So initially you are having the 700 indirect cost. That means initial project duration cost is 700, and after we are reducing our project duration by 1 day per day, our indirect cost is reduced from 50. දැන් අපි හිතුවොත් අපි මොකක් හරි activity එකක් දවස් 5කින්ම reduce කරා කියලා. එතකොට ඔයාලට මේ 50 5න් වැඩි කරලා තමයි ගන්න ඕනේ, because this 50 is given per day. So initially we are having the indirect cost of 700. So I will take the 700 initially, and for the total cost you have to take the direct cost and indirect cost summation. So the second one is, for the E activity, after crashing E activity, it is 13 days. So the direct cost is 1,220. So after reducing each and by 1 day, we can reduce our indirect cost. So from 700, you can reduce it by 50. That means 650. So you have to take the summation to get the total cost. So the next one is 12 days. Direct cost is 1,260. And from 650, you can deduct 50 again. That means 600. So the total cost is 1,860. So optimum project duration. So when you are going to see the optimum project duration, you have to see the place where the total cost is minimum, right? So after seeing this three total costs, the total cost is minimum at the days of 12 days. Optimum project duration is 12 days where total cost is minimized, right? So that is the first question they are asking. Find out the optimum project duration. So the second one is reduce the project duration as much as possible. That means crash as much as possible. So we can crash this activity up to 12 days. Further to that, we cannot crash this activity. That means the project duration can be reduced up to 12 days. So in the examination, please answer all these questions and please make sure to write down each and every step that you have done for reducing the crash, for reducing the duration of the project, right? So this is the way that you have to follow when you are doing your this example number 1, example number 3, sorry, right? So if you all are finished now, I can move to the next question. Shall I move to the next question? Is anyone wanting more time to write down this? If not, I can go. So Diane and Aisha said okay. So what about others? Right. So I will go for the example number 4. So example number 4 is a little bit tough, and we have to crash that example number 4 for several times. Uh, so I have explained, if you take, so in the example, in the question that I have given, I have only provided this part, right? මගේ සතියේ බදාද කිව්වා මේ ටික විතරක් දුන්නට පස්සේ දැන් මෙහෙම activity 1 2 එහෙම දුන්නට පස්සේ ඔයා අනිවාර්යෙන්ම මේ crash කරනවා නම් project එක ඔයාට identify කරගන්න වෙනවා it has A B C D E, right? So first of all you have to see the normal time. If the normal time is 0 means that activity that is not actually an activity, it becomes a dummy activity. If you have find out any dummy activity, you are not required to assign any number here or any letter here. You are not required to assign any letter here if this activity is a dummy activity, right? So therefore I will not assign any number here, and I will assign letters for other activities, right? So in here question, they have not given the maximum crash time. So you have to find out the maximum crash time. How to find out the maximum crash time? From normal time, you have to deduct the crash time, right? So actually these are given in weeks, right? So after getting the normal time, deducting crash time, you can take the maximum crash time, right? So please find out all this maximum crash time. So the cost slope you can calculate by getting the crash cost, from the crash cost minus normal time and whole thing you can divide it by the maximum crash time G5, right? So likewise you have to calculate the maximum crash time and cost slope, right? H and I cost slopes are incorrect. ඇයි? Correct. Right. Okay, thank you. I think it is correct, right? Right. So after finding out this maximum crash time and cost slope, you can draw this project network, right? So according to this example, they are asking to draw using activity on arrow approach, right? So in the activity on arrow approach, I have told you for the node, please use circle instead of boxes, right? So as I'm using this Excel here, for my easiness, I am using the boxes here for the node. But if you are instructed to draw the activity on arrow approach in the examination, please make sure to draw those things in a node or a circle, right? දැන් පුතේ exam එකේදී මම activity on arrow approach එක කරන්න කිව්වොත් ඒක හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න circle එකක් අඳින්න. හරිද? arrow එක තමයි එතනදී activity එක වෙන්නේ activity on arrow approach එකේදී. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඒක එහෙම පිළිපැදුන්නේ නැහැයි කියන්නේ මට exam එකේදී marks දෙන්න බෑ කියන තමයි මම මේක නිතරම කියන්නේ, right? So please follow the above guidelines at the examination. So I will now go and draw the project network. So I can start the activity 1 2, right? So starting activity 1, so draw a circle here and 1 2. So that arrow can be call it as A, and the normal time is 3. After that 2 3, right? 2 and 3, that B activity normal time is 3. So after that 2 4, 2 4, it is C activity, this and the normal time is 7. Then after 2 5, 2 5, D activity and normal time is 9. And E activity 3 5, 3, 5 E activity, and the normal time is 5. හෙමින් මට ඇත්තටම මේ ක්වෙස්චන් එක අද ඉවර කරන්න ඕනේ. මේකේ ගොඩාක් ක්‍රෑෂ් කරන්න තියෙනවා. ඒකයි මම මේ ටිකක් හයියෙන් කරන්නේ. සචිනි නේද? සචිනිව මෙතෙන්ට වෙනකන් ඇඳගත්තද? ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් නෙට්වර්ක් එක. හරි දැන් අපි E activity එක වෙනකන් කරා. 3, 5 E activity is having a duration of 5. And for this 4 and 5, for this 4 and 5 we have already find out that 4 and 5 is a dummy activity නේ. normal time එක 0 කියලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒක dummy activity එකක් කියලා we have already find out. Therefore for the dummy activity you have to draw a line which is actually දැන් මේ කඩ ඉරක් වගේනේ අපි අඳින්නේ නේ. A activity එක අපි you have to make this arrow as a line which is having the dashes, right? Which is having dashes. I have, as this is a dummy activity with dashes, I am drawing the activity, this activity, right? As this is a dummy activity, you have to draw it as dashes, right? So I have done up to this point, and 5 and 6, 5 and 6 F activity is there, and the normal time is 6. And for the 6 and 7, for the 6th and 7 G activity is there, and the G activity time is 4, right? 6 and 7 එකේ G activity එක 4. And for the 6 and 8 H activity 13 duration. 6 and 8, 6 and 8 H activity, 6 and 8 H activity, and the duration is 13, right? So the next one is 7th and 8 I activity. Normal time is 13. 7th is here. For the 7th, I have already drawn the 8 node. So you can draw another arrow. So 7th and 8 I activity 30. For the J activity 8 and 9 normal time is 10. For the 8 and 9 J activity normal time is 10, right? This is the way that you have to draw your project network, right? So once you have completed this drawing this project network, please tell me. So after drawing this project network, you have to calculate the time as well, right? So I will start with 0. For that 0, you have to add this tree. That means tree here. For that tree, you are adding this B tree, yeah, tree normal time of tree of the B activity. So 6 here. And for that tree, you are adding 7, so 10 here. So 3 plus 9, you are getting 12 here. And for the 6, you have to add 5, that means 11. And so you are having 12 here. Sorry, you are having 10 here. So as the dummy activity it is 0, so 10 plus 0 is 0. So based on this tree activity, as we are doing the forward pass calculation, you have to take the highest value. So the highest value is 12. For that 12, you have to add 6, that is 18. For that 18, you are adding 4, so it is 22. For that 18, you have to add 13. So after adding 18 into 13, the value become 31. For 22, you have to add 13. For 22, you have to add 13, that is 35. So you have to take the highest value, that is 35. For that 35, you have to add 10, so it is 45. So then after you can get the 45, again 45 here. So that 45 you are deducting 10 here, that means 35. From that 35 you have to deduct 13, that means 7th one, 22. So from 35 deducting 30 means what? From 35 deducting 30 means what is the value? 22. And from 22 you have to deduct 4, it is 18. So now we are doing the backward pass calculation. That means you have to take the minimum value, that means 18. From 18 you have to deduct 6 here, that is 12. So this 12, from this 12 you have to deduct 5, that is 7. From this 12 you have to deduct 9. So after deducting 9, you are getting 3 here. 12 again come here. So from 12 deducting 7 means the value is 5. Right. So from here, 7 minus 3 means 4. So there are 3 values, you have to take the minimum. So the value is 3. From that 3, you are deducting 3 again. That means the value is 0. Right. So we have now completed our calculation in project network as well. Right. So the next step is writing down all these paths that we can get in this project network. So firstly, you have to write down your activities A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So in here, you can ignore the dummy activity because we haven't assigned a letter for that dummy activity. Therefore, you can just ignore that dummy activity, right? So just ignore that dummy activity. And you have to write down the normal time of this each and every activity. So the normal time of this each and every activity I have taken, right? So after writing down these two things, you have to write down all the paths that you can go in this project network. දැන් අපි මේ activities වලට අදාළව තියෙන normal time එකයි activities ටිකයි ලිව්වට පස්සේ ඊළඟ step එක මොකක්ද අපිට තියෙන්නේ? අපිට ඊළඟට මේව කරන්න ඕනේ පුතේ මොකක්ද? අපි හැම path එකක්ම අඳුන ගන්න ඕනේ, right? So I will start from here. A, B, E, F, G, I, J. So this is the first path, right? Right. The second path is A, B, E, F, H, J. That is the second path. So the third path is A, D, F, G, I, J. So the fourth path is A, D, F, H, J, right? So we have written down 4 paths now. This fifth path is A, C, dummies you can ignore, A, C, F, G, I, J. Sixth path or the final path is A, C, F, H, J. So there are 6 paths for this project network. So I have write down all these 6 paths. After writing down all these 6 paths, you have to take the summation, right? So A, B, E. First path A, B, E, F, G, I, J, right? So after writing down all this duration, you have to take the summation here, right? So likewise, you have to take each and every path total duration. For the second path, A, B, E, F, H, J. So can you all see whether my duration, all this duration are right? After taking few more minutes, I will give you 1 minute. See whether my total durations are right. Diluni is saying correct, right? So I think, do you all completed up to this point? Calculating all these total durations. Right, Diane is also said correct, right? So then after calculating all this total duration, right, Kavin is also said yes. So after calculating all this duration, you have to identify the critical path. So which path is having the longest duration? This 44, 40, 45, 41, 43, 39 means this is the longest duration path. So A, D, F, G, I, J. A, D, F, G, I, J. So this is the critical path. So I have highlighted the activity names and I have highlighted the maximum crash time and the cost law, right? So the next one is they are asking to calculate, find out optimum project duration. The second one is reduce the project duration as much as possible. And there are given the in this question they are given 2 options for the indirect cost. First option is if the indirect cost per week, so they are given the time for week. So if the indirect cost per week 200, so number of weeks you have to multiply this 200 and addition of 500. And the second option is if the indirect cost per week is only 200, there is no any additions of these 500 for the second option, right? So firstly you have to crash this activity, right? So after identifying the critical path activity, firstly you have to see whether there are some activity which is having the maximum crash time of 0. By seeing the highlighted activity, is there any activity which is having 0 for the maximum crash time? No, there is no any activity. That means we can take all this critical path activity. And the next one we are seeing is minimum cost law. So in the highlighted yellow cells, what is the minimum cost law of having activity? On 1,000, 450, 450, 700, 400, and 2,000. That means the lowest cost slope is having the I, right? Very good. The I activity is having. So the first step that you have, firstly, you have to write down the project duration, right? So project duration for the initial project is how much? Project duration is longest duration, it is 45 days. Project duration is 45 weeks, right? So you have to remember these are given it in weeks. So at the examination, I may give you as days, weeks, or times as well, right? So you have to use the correct name for the timing. Whether if the question is given it in days, you have to write it down days. If the question is given it in weeks, you have to write down at week. දැන් එක්සෑම් එකේදී පුතේ මොනවද දීලා තියෙන්නේ weeks the days the time දානවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ හරියට ඒක ලියන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? ඒක හරියට ලිව්ව නැතුණත් marks දෙන්න බෑ. Right? So project duration is 45 weeks and the total direct cost. We do not calculate the total direct cost, right? Total direct cost is equal to how much? You have to take the summation. Did I give the summation here? I cannot remember. So take the summation of these normal cost here, right? So it is 50,000. So the normal project duration is 45 weeks and the total direct cost is 50,000. Project duration is 45 weeks and the total direct cost is 50,000. So we have now identified I activities having the lowest cost slope. So I will crash the I activity, and I activities having the maximum crash time of how much? I activity can be crashed using 3 days, but we are not going to crash the activity I by 3 days. Why? Because activity I is not common for all this path. දැන් I activity එකේ maximum crash time එක 3ක් තිබුණාට පුතේ අපි 3ෙන්ම crash කරන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද අපි මේ paths 6ම ගත්තොත් ඒ path 6ෙම I activity එක common activity එකක් නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි I activity එක common activity එකක් නම් මේ paths ඔක්කොගෙම project network එකේ තියෙන path ඔක්කොගෙම I activity එක common activity එකක් නම් you can crash that activity by the maximum crash time. As the activity I is not common for this path, all this path, I will crash the I activity only by 1 day. That means the I activity having the maximum crash time of 2 now, right? So the next one is crash I by 1 day. Crash I by 1 day. So crash I by 1 day means you have to find out I activity here. So it is now 12. So all this should be 12 here. And the total duration is how much? 43 here. And here it is 44. and here it is 42. Right? So crash I by 1 day. Again, what is the critical path? Again, the critical path is remain as ADFGIJ. So crash I by 1 day. So the duration is how much? 45 weeks, right? And the total direct cost. Total direct cost. We are having 50,000 here. For that 50,000, you have to add the I value. I value is 400, right? So you have to add this 400. So it is equal to 50,400. 1 week, right? Very good. Right. So we have now done the crash I. Again, we are seeing that again this path is this path is the critical path, right? So again we are seeing the max which is having the lowest cost law. So again I is having the lowest cost law. That means we can crash it by another 1 day, right? So the 2 now become 1 here. 2 now become 1 here. So I will crash crash I by 1 day, right? So the weeks has to be changed and the cost has to be changed, right? So crash I by 1 day, that means it should be 11 here. So please do with me, right? So the total duration is 42 here. So again 11. So total duration is 43 here. $41. So crash I by one day. So after crashing I by 1 day, which path is having the critical path? So again the critical path is remain as it is, the previous one. So the crash I by 1 day, there are 43 weeks in the critical path. So the total direct cost for the previously we have 50,400. For that you have to add this 400 cost of I, that means 50,800 cost. Crash I by 1 week තමයි. මං crash කරේ I එක 1 week වලින්නේ. Then I have crash I by 1 week.
ඔතන මේ ලියලා තියෙන මැඩ.
Sorry. It should be 1 week. So thank you very much. So crash I by 1 week. So thank you very much for showing that my error, right? So again, this path is, the critical path is same, right? So we can crash I by another 1 day because we are having I1, right? So I will crash I by another 1 day. So I will make it another color. So I activity cannot be crashed furthermore, right? Therefore, I will cross this I activity. So crash I by 1 week. So the weeks will be going to be changed and the total direct cost will going to be changed. So crash I by 1 week means it should be 10 here. It should be 41. If I made a mistake, please let me know, right? So 10 here, 42. 10 again here, 40. So crash I by 1 week. After crashing I by 1 week, we are having what is the critical path? Again, 42 is the critical path. 41, 40, 42, 41, 40, 39. So 42 weeks. We are having 42 weeks, and the total direct cost for this 50,800, you have to add 400. So what is the value you are getting? 51,200. $51,200. Yes, very good. Right. So 51,200. Again, this path is a critical path, right? We have now crossed this I activity, and we have to see now which activity is having the lowest cost slope. So the lowest cost slope is having 450 for the D and F activity, right? So among that D and F activity, which activity you are going to crash? The next lowest cost slope is having D and F activity. So which activity you are going to crash? D activity. Very good, Ayesha. Dilun is saying D. Right? Diane is also saying D. Because when we are having the lowest cost slope 2 activities, you have to take the lowest identification number. So the lowest identification number is having among D and F, D activity. So D activity we are going to crash by how many days? D is also not going to be a common activity. Therefore, I will crash D activity only by 1 day. That means 2 become 1. Very good. Sorry, 1 week. Right. So D activity, I will crash by 1 week, right? Crash D by 1 week. So the weeks will be changed, and the total direct cost for that 51,200, I have to add the 450. So crash D by 1 week. It should be 8 here. So now the value is 41. Again 8. So the value is 40 here. So which is the critical path now? 41, 40, 41, 40, 40, 39. That means the critical path is 41. So 41. So crash D by 1 week. We are having 41 weeks. Total direct cost for that 51,200, you have to add the deactivity cost. Deactivity cost is 450. So you have to add 450 here. After adding that value, your cost become 51,650. Harida. So the next one is again 41 weeks. Now we are having how many critical path? We are now having 2 critical path, A, D, F, G, I, J, and A, B, E, G, I, right? So I have to highlight. I have to highlight this path as well. A, B, E, F. So A, B, E, F also highlighted. G, I, J. G, I, J. I is already crossed, right? So among this path, what is the activity you are going to crash? So among this path also you have to see what activity is high in the lowest cost, right? So what is the activity which is having the lowest cost? D and F activity, right? D and F activity. So among that D and F activity, you have to see, so among the lowest duration cost slope, you have to find out the lowest identification number. Among D and F, the lowest identification number is having D. Then after you have to see is the D is a common activity for these two paths. D is not a common activity. Therefore, we cannot crash the D activity. So, but if the F activity is common, that means we can crash F, right? රුක්ෂිකා D එකට තමයි මේ D and F තමයි මෙතන lowestම තියෙන්නේ පුතේ. lowestම cost slope එක තියෙන්නේ D and F. හැබැයි අපි දැන් D එකනේ අපි දැන් lowestම තියෙන එක හඳුනාගත්තට පස්සේ ඒකේ lowest identification number එක ගන්නවා. එතකොට lowest identification number එක ගත්තම D activity එක තමයි එන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ අපි බලනවා අපිට critical paths දෙකක් තිබුණ හින්දා අපි බලනවා D activity එක common activity එකක්ද? නැහැ. D activity එක common activity එකක් නෙමෙයි. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට ඒක crash කරන්න බෑ. මේ parts දෙකේ common එකක් නෙමෙයි හින්දා D එක crash කරන්න බෑ. But F activity is common for these two critical paths. That means we can crash F activity, right? So we are going to crash F activity by 1 week. The colors are not there, right? So crash activity F by 1 week. So crash F by 1 week. So the days will change, weeks will change, and the cost will going to change. So we are going to crash F by 1 week, right? So crash F by 1 week means you have to F is a common activity, right? So දැන් F එක පුතේ common එකක්නේ. දැන් F එක අපි ගත්තම F එක හැම එකටම තියෙනවා. එතකොට F activity එක අපිට 1 එකකින් දෙකකින් crash කරන්න පුළුවන්. Yeah, we can do it. We can crash the F activity by 2 days. So we are crashing F activity 2 day means it becomes now 0. That means F activity cannot be crashed further, right? I will cross the F activity. So crash F by 2 weeks. You have to make it as 2 weeks, and after crashing F by 2 weeks, it should be 4 here. As the F is common, you can crash the F activity by 4. Crash F by 2 weeks. So the duration should also be changed. Here 39. So if I made a mistake, please let me know, right? 38. 39 here. 38 here. Again 38 here. 37 here. Right? So crash F by 2 weeks. Crash F by 2 weeks. So crash F by 2 weeks. What is the which path is having the longest duration? 39, 38, 39, 38, 38, 37. So 39, right? So 39 weeks we are having, and the total direct cost is, you have to add what? 450 twice, right? 450 twice, because we have crashed the F activity by 2 weeks. So 450 twice means you have to add the 900, right? So the value is what? 52,550. Right, very good. 52,550. So can you see these two paths are common? Still, these two paths are common, right? So we will see which activity now we are going to crash. So D activity is not common for that path. So the next lowest duration is having not E activity. Is the E activities? The B activity also become the crash activity, but the maximum crash time is 0. That means B cannot be further crash, right? As it is having 0 here. So the lowest cost is having D is not a common activity for both activity. E is 500. E is 500. E is also not a common activity. G is 700. G is a common activity, right? G is having 700. So J is having 2000. So we can crash G. ඊළඟට අඩුම cost එක තියෙන්නේ 700. ඒ වගේම එක common වෙනවනේ. එහෙනම් G crash G by 1 day. When we are crashing G by 1 day, the G activity also cannot be further crashed, right? So G activity also you have to cross, right? So crash G by 1 week. මං හරි නේද පුතේ? ඊළඟට crash කරන්න තියෙන G activity එක නේද? Crash G by 1 week. So we have to find the week here. And the total direct cost is now 52,550. For that you have to add, right? So crash G by 1 week. 3. So the total duration is now 38. 3 here. Total duration is 38. So crash G by 1 week. What is the critical path? 38, 38, 38, 38. So 38. So crash G by 1 week. 38 weeks are there. 38 weeks are there. Total direct cost. So G activity is having how much cost? G activities cost slope is 700. You have to add that cost slope 700. So after adding this 700, 53,250. 1,250. Crash G by 1 week, right? So can you see there are 4 critical paths now. A first path, the second path, and third path already critical, and fourth path is also now become the critical, right? So we have to highlight the critical path. A, B, E, F, H, J. A, B, E, F, A, B, E, F, H, J. H is also now critical, right? So all this path now become critical. A, D, F, G, H already done. A, D, F, H, J. A, D, F, H, J. So instead of this C activity, all this path now become critical, right? So what are the activity now we are going to crash? ඊළඟට අපි බලන්න ඕනේ මොන activity එකද crash කරන්න යන්නේ කියලා. So if I take all this critical path here, Ishara is telling that we are going to crash H activity. So we have crash up to G activity, right? So we are now going to see what is the activity we are going to crash. So B is already deducted. B එක නැහැ මෙතන. B එක අපි highlight කරමුකෝ නැහැයි කියලා. ඊළඟට B නැති ඒවා අපි ඔක්කොම highlight කරමු, right? B එක නැහැ. F එකත් නැහැ. F එකත් නැහැ. So I have highlighted in red. G is also not there. G and I, no? G and I both no. We have cross. G and I. Right? So these activities are not remain, right? Already cost those activities. So if I take A activity is common. A activity is common and it is having 1000. So it is highest, right? B activity is not common. A is having 1000. D is having 450. A is having 1000. D is having 4050, 450. E is having how much? E is having 500. Is there? H is not common, but we will see H is having how much? 400. H is also having 400. J is having 2000. J is common, right? We are not going to crash J. J is 2000. A is 1000. So if I see H is there for the 2 path, but H is not there for the other path. If I see D and E, if I take D and H cannot be taken. If I see D and E, D is common for this path and E is common for this part. So the total summation of D and E is equal to 950. It is less than 1000. So it is better to crash D and E both. No. A activity එක පුතේ දැන් අපි බැලුවම cost එක 1000 නේ තියෙන්නේ. A activity එකේ 1000. දැන් අපි බලන්න ඕනේ cost slope එක අඩුම එක ගන්න, right? එතකොට බැලුවම D තියෙනවා මේ දෙකට, E තියෙනවා මේ දෙකට. එතකොට total cost එක අපි ගත්තම 950 එන්නේ. දැන් අපි H ගත්තොත් මේ දෙකේ තියෙනවා මේ දෙකේ common එකක් නැහැ පාර හොයාගන්න. H එක ගත්තොත් නේ. J ගත්තොත් 2000. It is really high. So better to crash D and E. D is there for these two and E is there for these two, right? So crash D and E by 1 week. So when we are crashing D by 1 week, it should be 0 now, right? It has to be 0 now. So D is also cross now, right? D and E. E is also cross now. Crash D and E by 1 week. Crash D and E by 1 week. So the weeks will go out and the total direct cost will be changed. So crash D and E. Crash E by 1 week means who here? It should be 37 here. Over here. 37. Here. So crash D and E by 1 week. So the value now become 37. All these paths are now become critical. 37 weeks and the total direct cost is how much? Can you remember? D and E cost are 450 and 500. It means 950. You have to add 450 plus 500. So it is 950. You have to add 45,200. Have you all done up to this point? So can you see now all this path now become the critical path. So A, C, F, G are also now critical. So C is now critical. C is also now critical, right? So let's see what are the activity now we can get. These two are now also critical, right? I will take these two also here. So already cash B no, D and E no there. F G I already cross. So now you have to see what is the activity you are now going to crash. මොන activity එකද පුතේ ඊළඟට අපි crash කරන්න යන්නේ? A is having 1000. So now D and E also cannot be crashed further, right? D and E also cannot be crashed further. So now we cannot crash this further, right? A is having 1000, H is having 4000 and J is having 2000, HJ. C is having how much? C is having 800. C is having 800. H I have taken J. So what is the activity you are now going to crash? So A is common for all this part. It is 1000. H is not common for all this path. H is only there for 3 paths. So that means H cannot be taken. J is common for all this path, right? J is common for all this path, but it is having how much? It is having 2000. A is having also 1000. It is better. C is also not a common activity. That means that cannot be also crash. So among this 1000 and 2000, better to crash A, right? Right, very good. Crash A. So crash A, A activity is having maximum crash time of 1 week. That means after crashing A, it is also become now 0. So that means A activity cannot be crashed further. So crash A, crash A by 1 week, the weeks will go will change. And for the 54,200, it should be added what? 1000 cost, right? So after adding 1000 cost, 55,200. So let's see what are the duration now we are having. So we can crash A by 1 week. So the total duration has to be changes as one reduction. So crash A by 1 weeks, we are remaining with 36 week, right? So we are remaining with 36 week. We are remaining with 36 weeks and the cost is 55,200. Yeah, Manisha is asking, Madam may seratam podunisa total the crash. Yes. So totally, so A is common for all the activity, right? I have crash and activity A is having only one time, one week to crash. Therefore, I have crashed it by all these weeks, all this activity, right? So I have crashed the activity A as well. So activity A is now, we cannot further crash, right? So I will highlight it that A activity cannot be further crash. So I will cut it down. So I am highlighting those activity. So in your paper, in your when you are doing these things in your paper, you can cut it down easily, right? So I have highlighted A, right? If we see the A cannot be further crash, that means we are remaining with what? J activity. So J is having 2000. So J can be crashed by 1 week. That means we can crash J by 1 week. That is the only thing that we can now do, right? So crash J by 1 week means after crashing J by 1 week, it is also going to be, cannot be crashed further. So crash J by 1 week. So the weeks will going to be changed. It should come as 35, right? 35 weeks. 35 weeks. And for this cost, you have to add 2000 cost. That means 57,200. So crash j by 1 week. It should be 9 here. So the duration is reduced by 1 week. All these activity durations need to be now 35, right? So the total duration is how much? Crash j by 1 week, 35 weeks, and the total direct cost for that direct cost you have to add 2000. So now j cannot be further crash. So I will highlight the j activity also, right? So j cannot be further crash means I will highlight that j activity. I will cross, right? So j cannot be further crash. So what are the j cannot be further crash, right? So we are remaining with h. H is not common for all this path, right? And we are remaining with h and c. So both the c and h, the letters which is in black color, are not common for all this path. As all these six path now critical, there is no any common activity to be crash further, right? That means this is the maximum uh, reduction that we can do for this project, right? So we can reduce the project duration as much as possible now, right? That means we can reduce the project duration up to 35 weeks. So can reduce project duration, can reduce project duration up to 35 weeks. So this is the answer for the second question. So in the first question, they are asking what? They are asking, this is for the second question answer, right? They are asking, find out the optimum project duration, and they are given one option and two option, right? So for the one option, I am writing. So weeks are given and total direct cost. So better to do this, right? Indirect cost and total cost, right? So the weeks are 45. For that 45 weeks, total direct cost is 50,000. And 44 weeks, what is the value? 50,400. So do this thing and find out the optimum value for the option 1. 50,800. So for the 42 days, 51,200. For the 41 week, 51,650. Oh, for the 39th week, for the 39th week. For the 39th week, For the 39th week, what is the value? 52,550. For the 38th week, for the 38th week, 53,250. For the 37th week, what is the value? 44,200. For the 36th week, 55,200. For the 35 week, 57,200, right? So under the option 1, they are telling that indirect cost per week is 200. So from the each of these week, you have to multiply, right? So after multiplying this by weeks, and you have to add what? You have to add the addition of 500 here. So this is the total indirect cost, right? You have to multiply it by the relevant week and add the 500. So then after you can take the total direct cost, get the summation of these direct and indirect cost. So for the first option, if I see this value, what is having the minimum cost? Minimum cost is having this, right? So this is the minimum cost having, right? So for the option 1, optimum project duration is what? For the option 1, optimum project duration is 45 weeks. Option 1, optimum project duration is 45 weeks. So for the option 2 also you have to calculate. For the option 2, I know you have to take more time than me, right? I will copy these things to these. So indirect cost should be changed, right? So indirect cost for the option 2 is only the 200 per week. 200, multiply it by the what? Multiply it by the number of weeks. So you have to take the summation of these two. And in here, second option also, they are asking to calculate the optimum project duration. So which week is having optimum project duration? Optimum project duration එක මෙතනක් තියෙන්නේ කොතනද පුතේ? 45 weeks is having the optimum project duration here also, right? So optimum project duration is 45 weeks for the, very good, 45 weeks for the second option as well, right? Right. So these are the things actually they are asking to do in these calculations, right? So this is the end of this calculation. So can you all give me a feedback of this lesson? So I will finish off this lesson from this example, and I wish to start the performance evaluation lesson from the next week, and I have to do the project rates and project closure. So I am having 3 lessons to be covered, right? And I have already covered all these topics, and there are 3 more topics to be covered. Performance evaluation, that is also based on calculation, and project risks and project closure based on theoretical part aspects, right? Right. So we have now covered quite lot of the project management subject. So do you have any suggestions, or what is your comments regarding this subject? So please make sure that you have practiced all the calculation that I have done for you. මම මේ කරපු හැම ගානක්ම පුතේ හදලා හොඳට practice වෙන්න. So if I have some time, I will do a tutorial as well for you, right? දැන් මේ හැම ගානකම ගොඩාක් calculations තිබ්බා. ගොඩාක් rules ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මම කියලා දුන්නා. ඒ rules හැම එකක්ම මගේ hand out වල නැහැ. මම ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කිව්වේ වෙලාවෙදි note down කරගන්න කියලා. මම හිතනවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ note down කරගන්න ඇති කියලා. හැබැයි lecture එකට නම් එන්නේ ගොඩාක් පොඩි ප්‍රමාණයක්. හැබැයි මම හිතනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ recordings බලනවා ඇති මේ power cuts හින්දා වෙන්න ඇති ළමයි ඉන්නේ නැත්තේ. හැබැයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේ videos බලලා able to practice. And otherwise, if you are missing some step in project management, means you are missing all the rest of the thing, right? Then the project management you're going to pay no step by step yeah, next week poe day for the Wednesday, right? We will next meet on, I think, on Friday. So do you have a free time slots to be taken? Poe day Wednesday. එහෙම free time slot එකක් තියෙනවා නම් මට කියන්න. එහෙම වුණොත් අපිට ඒක මේ වෙන දවසකට දාගෙන කරන්න පුළුවන්. So ඔයගොල්ලන්ට දැන් මම මේ දක්වා කරපු ටික පැහැදිලිද පුතේ? ඒ කියන්නේ ඔක්කොම lessons ගැන මම අහන්නේ. දැන් මම project management වල සැලකිය යුතු ප්‍රමාණයක් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට cover කරලා ඉවරයි. So do you have any suggestions regarding my lecture series? If so, you can send me through the chat. So I will upload this Excel sheet to the LMS. Project management අමාරුද? Subject එක? මම කියන්නේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මම හරියම කියන්නේ හැම එකක්ම explain කරනවා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේක practice කරාම ඇත්තටම මේකේ steps ටික ඔක්කොම දන්නවා නම් මේක practice කරාම කරන්න පහසුයි. So as you are not responding for me, so I will wind up the today's lecture. And if you have any free time slots to be taken to do the class, you can let me know. So thank you very much for participating for the lectures. So actually I have asked you about your suggestions because I can make it myself, right? Okay, I will end the session.